Hello everyone, my name is K. Rajesh. I am from CSCB section. Today's my topic is about market demand. Introduction. In a general sense, economics is the study of production, description, distribution and consumption and can be divided into three broad of areas of studies: macroeconomics and microeconomics. Macroeconomics deals with aggregate economic quantities such as national output and national income. Macroeconomics has its roots in microeconomics, which deals with the market and decision making of individual economic units, including consumers and businesses. Microeconomics is a logical starting point for the study of economics. Fundamental subject in microeconomics: demand and supply analysis. Demand and supply analysis is the study of how buyers and sellers interact to determine transaction prices and quantities. As we will see, prices simultaneously reflect both the value to the buyers of the next unit and the cost of the sellers of that unit. In private enterprise market economics, which are the chief concern of investment analysis, demand and supply analysis compasses the most basic set of microeconomics tools. Types of markets: analysts must understand the demand and supply model of markets because all firms buy and sell in markets. Investment analysts need at least a basic understanding of those markets and the demand and supply model that provides a framework for analyzing them. Markets are broadly classified as markets and good markets. Factor markets are markets for the purchase and sale of a factor of production. In capitalist private enterprise economics, households own the factors of production, that is, the land, labor, physical capital, and material used in the production. Goods markets are markets for the output of production. From an economics representative, firms which ultimately are owned by individuals, either either singly or in some corporate form, are organizations that buy the services of their factors. Firms, firms then transform those services into intermediate or final goods and services. Intermediate goods and services are those purchased for use as inputs to produce other goods and services, whereas final goods or services are in the final form purchased by households. These two types of interaction between the household sector and the firm sector, those related to goods and those related to services, takes place in the factor markets and goods markets respectively. In the factor markets for labor, households and sellers are and firms are buyers. In goods markets, firms are sellers and both households and firms are buyers. For example, firms are buyers of capital goods such as equipment and intermediate goods, while households are buyers of variety durable and non-durable goods. Generally, market interactions are voluntary. Firms offer their productions for sale when they believe the payment they will receive exceeds their cost of production. Households are willing to purchase goods and services when the value necessary to acquire them. Whenever the uh, perceived, uh, perceived value of goods exceeds the expected cost to produce it, a potential trade can take place. This factor may seem obvious, but in the fundamental to our understanding of markets, if a buyer values something more than the seller, not only in then their opportunity for the exchange, but the exchange will make both parties better off. In In one type of factor markets called labor markets, households offer to sell their labor services when the payment when the payment they accept and receive exceeds the value of the leisure time they must forgo. In contract firms hire workers when they judge that the value of the productivity of workers is greater than the cost of the employing them. A major source of household income and the major cost of firms is compensation paid in exchange for labor services. Additionally, households typically choose to spend less on consumption than they earn from their labor. This behavior is called savings, through which households can accumulate financial capital, the returns on which can produce other sources of household income, such as interest, dividends, and capital gains. Households households may lend their accumulates savings in exchange for interest or invest in the ownership claims. Introduction in frames. Households make these savings choices when their anticipated further returns are judged to be more valuable today than the present consumption that households must sacrifice when they save. The demand function and the demand curve. The quantity consumers are willing to buy clearly depends on the number of different factors called variables. Perhaps the most important of those variables in the item's ownership, own price. In general, economists believe that as the price of the goods rises, buyers will choose to buy less of it, and as its prices falls, they buy more. This is such a ambiguous observation that it has come to be called the law of demand. Although we shall see that it need not hold in all circumstances. Although a good's own price is important in determining consumers' willingness to purchase it, other variables also have influence on that decision, such as consumers' incomes, their taste and preference, the prices of other goods that serves are substitutes or complements, and so on. Economists accept to capture all of these influences in a relationship called the demand function. In general, a function is a relationship that assigns a unique value to the dependent value variable for any given set of values of a group of independent variables. The signs of the coefficient of the gasoline price and the consumers income are intuitive, reflecting respectively an inverse of the positive relationship between those variables and quantity of gasoline consumed. The negative sign and on average automobile price may indicate that if automobiles go up in price, fewer will be purchased and driven. Hence, hence less gasoline will be consumed. As well as discussed later, such a relationship would indicate that gasoline and automobiles have the negative cross price elasticity demand and are thus complements. The supply function and the supply curve. The willingness and ability to sell a goods or services is called supply. In general, producers are willing to sell their products for the price as long as that the price is at least as high as the cost of produce on additional units of the products. It follows that the willingness to supply, called the supply function, depends on the price at which the good can be sold as well as the cost of the production for the additional units of the goods. The greater the difference between those two values, the greater is the willingness of the producers to supply the goods. The another reading we will explore the cost of the production in greater detail. At this point, we need to understand only the basics of cost. At its simplest level, production of a good consists of transforming units, inputs, or factors of production into finished goods and services. Economics refer to the rules that govern this transformation as a technology of production. Because producers have to purchase inputs in factor markets, the cost of the production depends on both the technologies and the price of these factors. Clearly, willingness to supply is independent independent on not only the price of the producer's output but also additional on the prices inputs necessary to produce it. For simplicity, we can assume that the only input in the production process is labor, and that must be purchased in the labor market. The price of an hour of labor is in the wage rate or W. Hence, we can say that the willingness to supply the good depends on the price of the good and wage wage rate. Market equilibrium. An important is concept in the market model is market equilibrium, defined as the condition in which the quantity willingness offered for sale by sellers at given price is just equal to the quantity willingness demanded by buyers at that same price. When a condition is met, we say that the market has discovered into equilibrium price. An alternative and equivalent condition of equilibrium occurs at that e- quantity at which the highest price a buyer is willing to pay is just equal to the lowest price a seller is willing to accept for the same quantity. As we can discover in the earlier sections, the curve shows an infinity number of combinations of prices and quantities that satisfy the demand function. Clearly, similarly, the supply curve shows an infinity number of combinations in the prices and quantities that satisfy the supply function. Thank you.